Greetings from Kenwell. Today is Saturday, June 29, 2024. Today I'm going to look at the triumphal entry of Jesus into Jerusalem in Mark 11, which worldwide has become known as Palm Sunday. I'm going to start off by telling you a not so triumphal entry that happened to me many years ago. In 1972, I had the privilege of going to the Munich Olympics, where I had the opportunity to stay in the Olympic Village with the Canadian men's swim team. I was not on the team, but as you can see from the picture, I have as a souvenir the official Olympic jacket. It was great wearing that. Well, if you look it up, Mark Spitz was the greatest male swimmer in the 1972 Olympics. I got to swim beside Mark during the warm-ups, and I saw him win all 7 of his gold medals. Now my story about my not so triumphal entry: after Mark Spitz had won his 7 gold medals and Shane Gould from the women's side had won her 5 gold medals, ABC had an interview with them. Now, I have no idea how I ended up in the room where the interview was being conducted. All I knew was that I wanted to blend into the background. So I went to the back of the room and I leaned against the back wall. And as I leaned against the back wall, I hit the light switch and the entire room went black. Well, I quickly turned it back on again, but as you can imagine, all eyes were on the room were on me. And I said, sorry. Definitely a not so triumphal entry. Now, to the triumphal entry of Jesus in Mark 11. I'm going to look at the story in a different way. Instead of delving into the story, I want to tell you the background of the story. I want to ask you this question: how many of you know that Jesus' triumphal entry into Jerusalem as Messiah was prophesied in the Old Testament? So if I was to ask you this question, where in the Bible is the prophecy about when the Messiah is going to come, what would you answer? The vast majority of Christians have no idea. If people guess, they usually guess Isaiah, but it is from Daniel that comes the answer. Well, the book of Daniel contains many detailed and accurate prophecies about what was to come. And here is one of the most amazing prophecies that you will ever hear. Let's look at Daniel 9:25. It says, "Know and understand this. From the time the word goes out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one," and that means the Messiah, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. Now bear with me, this is not as complicated as it sounds. Daniel 9:25 states that in 7 sevens and 62 sevens, which equals 69 sevens, from the time the word goes out to rebuild Jerusalem, the anointed one, the Messiah, will come. And all theologians are 100% convinced that the anointed one is indeed the Messiah. Well, to start God's time clock, we now have to look at Nehemiah 2 verse 1. It says, "In the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes." This was when Nehemiah asked the king for permission to rebuild the city of Jerusalem, and it was granted to him by King Artaxerxes to do so. We know that Artaxerxes began his reign in 465 BC. So his 20th year of reign would be 445 BC. And the first day of Nisan is March 14th. The 69 weeks thus began on March 14th, 445 BC. Bible scholars will tell you that weeks in this passage mean years. And we have to remember that the Jewish year consists of 360 days. Simple calculation of this time element is this: 69 weeks of years times 7 for the days of the week equals 173,880 days. From March 14th, 445 BC, when history tells us the decree to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem was given, you add 173,880 days and you will come up with April 6th, AD 32. According to many people, scholars like Sir Robert Anderson, Dr. David Jeremiah, and Messianic Jews, it was on that day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem in his triumphal entry on a donkey. This day we all know, of course, is Palm Sunday, when hundreds of people shouted hosannas and they waved palm branches to celebrate his coming. Previous to this day, Jesus has told his disciples to tell no one that he was the Messiah, but not on this day. When Jesus rode into Jerusalem on that donkey, some people were saying, "You should rebuke your disciples because the people are calling you the Messiahs." They are calling you the Messiah. And what did Jesus say in response to this? He said, "I tell you," he replied, "if these were silent, the very stones would cry out," as recorded in Luke 19, verse 40. I hope you will agree with me that this is an amazing prophecy. And remember that there were over 300 prophecies in the Old Testament that were specifically fulfilled in Jesus Christ. Our God is truly a great God. For our memory verse today, let's memorize the most famous verse in the Bible, John 3:16. "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life." Jesus gives us a purpose for life. And I have to admit, having eternal life sure sounds amazing. And as I love to say, may the good Lord be with you until we meet again.